Good morning, everyone. We are super excited that you're here to join us today for yet another PODSCast. This one is being sponsored and manned by Geonamic. We're super excited. They're going to talk about application migration to PODS7 and some lessons learned. So it is September the 21st, 11 a.m. Central. I am coming to you live from Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I was encouraged highly to purchase my OP shirt, right? So I'm learning to speak their language. It's not lost on me that I'm from Louisiana, and yet they sound really funny here. So we're super excited that you guys are with us today. A quick safety moment. I guess I need to change up my safety moment. I have the heat exhaustion and heat stroke all through the summer, but it is a crisp 73 here in Minnesota. It will probably be 100 when I get back home to Houston. So still applies for us in the South. So make sure that you keep an eye out for the people around you, and that you know the signs of heat exhaustion versus heat stroke. One of the major items and the differences there is that you will stop sweating if you have heat stroke. And if you're showing signs of heat stroke, then you definitely call 911 immediately. If you have excessive sweating along with nausea or vomiting or a rapid or weak pulse, then that's probably heat exhaustion. You need to get it to a cooler, either or air-conditioned place, and make sure you drink a lot of water. So, make sure you're looking out for yourself and the people around you as well. So, quick housekeeping items here. We want to make sure that everybody knows that this is we want everybody to participate here today. So we're going to have some polling questions that we're going to launch throughout the podcast today. And so if you just make sure that you put those quick polls when they pop up into your primary monitor. Sometimes when they're secondary or tertiary monitor, you have a little trouble answering the questions there. So make sure you participate in those polls. Make sure you ask questions either in the questions box or in the chat box. We tried to leave some time at the end to cover some questions. Of course, if we have a lot of great content that the crew is going to be covering today. So if we don't get to all of the questions, we'll make sure that we get those answers out to everybody that participated. We are, of course, recording this podcast live. It's going to be up on our LMS as well as on the PODS YouTube channel. So look for that if you want to forward that over to your colleagues. And yeah, so with that, we're going to be going over some great topics of application migration, data migration, PODS legacy versus PODS7, and then some lessons learned. So with that, I'm going to go over some quick items just about PODS. We are here all at PODS7 celebrating our 25th anniversary, and we're all here together as the PODS community because we understand that asset knowledge is essential to your compliance, your risk, and also serves as a great base for operators management systems. And we all know that, as most incidents have shown, from Bellingham to now, asset knowledge management is paramount to safe operations. So we're all here because when something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. And what an incredible community that we have here today. I need to update this slide. So PODS is the industry platform and community for pipeline data management and efficient pipeline data management. The PODS model sits on over 200 pipeline operator systems now in 38 countries. And just in the past 30 days, we signed on Romania and Peru. So that's exciting news. And over 3 million miles of pipeline assets and systems are in the PODS data model. So whereas we are, known for and historically being a majority of what we do is around the PODS data model, we are also a great community of resources as well. So I'm here in Minnesota this week for the NAPSR meeting and convention, which is the all of the state regulators get together, and they invited us to come up so that we can talk about how PODS is the baseline for the NPMS system for PHMSA, and how we can help all of the states develop their own state-specific data management system for assisting them with their their visits to all of the operators and all of their inspections, as well as making sure that they have access and visibility to not just the assets themselves, but everything that's around them too. So the PODS data model has a lot of benefits. I'm sure you all are aware, but if you're new to us, you know, it's an open platform. It's compatible with Esri software as well as many other GIS softwares out there, and that it's a database architecture specifically for linear reference databases. So when you have those long linear assets that have just a ton of data associated with them, you know, the PODS model is the great thing for you. And one of the things that they've been covering this week as well is all of the new gas gathering rule, which just came out, as well as the proposed distribution rule that's going to require TVC on distribution pipelines as well, all the way to the home, to the resident. So again, the PODS model is great for organizing all of that regulatory and compliance data. And it helps to standardize your reporting, right? So the MPMS system is built on PODS. So best way to submit all your annual reports and your MPMS uploads is to already be in PODS. Beyond the compliance, great decision-making tool, and it's a pipe-centric approach to managing your data. So with PODS7, there's a lot of new stuff, which the Geonamic crew is going to be covering today. Has a lot of flexibility, and I say it's the most flexible standard, you know, customizable standard that there is out there. So now with PODS7, you can merge with the UPDM model, and then of course utility network for managing your entire database. So enough about PODS. Well, actually, we're going to talk about PODS the whole time probably, but enough about the PODS Association. Super excited to welcome Geonamic here today, and I'm going to ask them to go ahead and introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. And while they're doing that, and you're learning a little bit more about them, I'm going to launch our first poll so that they can learn a little bit more about you. So as this poll comes up into your monitor for that quick poll, make sure that you answer one of those is what's your main role at your organization. And while those results are coming in, Brad, I'm going to hand it off to you so that you and the crew can introduce yourselves.
Great, thank you, Monique. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for joining. I'm Brad Schaaf with Geonamic. I'm a principal at Geonamic, primarily responsible for account management. Been focusing on oil and gas pipeline, specifically GIS and integrity kind of implementation for over 25 years now. So look forward to sharing some lessons learned with everybody. Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jackie Smith. For those of you who don't know me, I've been involved with PODS for about 5-6 years now. I've been also on the operator side in my previous career. Now I'm with Geonamic. So I'm very excited to be here, be working as a GIS consultant and a project manager, and looking to do some data migration projects. Happy to be here. Changming?
Hi, I'm Changming Du. I'm a lead developer at Geonamic, and I started to build software and applications for pipeline operator back to 1999. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share the results because 90% of the people voted. And of course, you know, I guess it's not going to be a surprise to us, right, that the majority of people on the call are in GIS and data management. But it's great to see that we have some integrity and compliance and IT people on the call as well. You know, the PODS community is made up of a wide array of people, which is great, and it's absolutely critical, right, because all of this data that we're managing is a great baseline and critical to safe operations of pipelines as well. So thanks so much for everybody for putting together those polls and telling us who you are. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Brad, who's going to tell us a little bit more about Geonamic.
Great, thank you. Just spend a couple slides here introducing Geonamic if you don't know us. Been around since 2006, but as you heard from myself and Changming and some other principals in the company, we've focused on your industry quite a bit longer than that. We are primarily a technology company. We build and support technology for asset integrity and data management. well over 2,000 users now, and we do build on top of the Esri platform. Changming and myself and all of our developers are here in Atlanta. Jackie is in Houston, and we have a large and growing team there that does analyst and project management and client support work as well. One of the things that we invest heavily in is supporting both legacy and new kind of data models. So we're happy to say that we support PODS7 in production now across several clients. And we still have lots and lots of Esri PODS spatial and PODS relational, kind of legacy PODS relational clients as well. So I mentioned that we're primarily a technology company. We do use and build on top of the Esri platform and work very hard to stay aligned with Esri. So some of our tools we deploy as using embedded Esri technology, particularly our integrity tools and some of our editing tools. We really get a benefit there of being able to support very, very large data volumes and get performance that we probably couldn't get on the desktop or on the web. We do deploy some things as add-ins to ArcGIS Pro, including our alignment sheet generation and liquids and gas HCA tools. And then we have quite a few services and widgets that we can deploy with ArcGIS Enterprise. And again, all of these things now support PODS7 in production. And then finally, services. So lots of our work is focused on deploying and supporting our software, but we can also deliver the software as a service. So for lots of our clients, we'll actually kind of use the software to deliver results for them. And we're very happy to support you with any data migration needs as well. We are doing more and more of that these days as our clients consider really upgrading their platform.
Brad, this is a lot of stuff. I'm glad y'all listed it all out here. Y'all do a lot of things, I know. So everybody can keep on a screenshot of this, right, to get through this later. But if we go through everything that y'all do, which is so much stuff, it'll take forever.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the point. Just a snapshot. So thank you.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. You guys are doing a great job supporting everybody. So with that, you mentioned PODS7, right? And that you guys are working diligently to make sure that all of your solutions are compatible with PODS7. So we wanted to ask another poll question of everybody so that the panel can make sure to hone in specifically on what's important to you guys. So the question here is your company planning on moving to PODS7 and when? So your options are yes in progress, yes in planning, yes a couple years out, and no staying on current version. So, Brad, I'm going to kick it back to you and say, what do you think, right? I mean, if you had to place some bets on it, where do you think this is all going to suss out from our audience?
Yeah, I think, I think probably the first two will be, that's certainly what's happening in our client base. We have a few kind of early adopters that have already moved. And then a couple in progress right now, and pretty much everyone is in planning. And really, the question is when. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into, I guess, the next section on why you might consider an upgrade.
Awesome. Well, we have right at 50% of those of you that are on that have voted. So I'll go ahead and close the poll and share those results. And yeah, you need to buy a lottery ticket, Brad. You were right.
Yep. Well, that's interesting on staying on the current version. Yeah, so that's really a big part of our challenge, as a third-party kind of application developer, is being able to support all of these things. So kind of a reality of our market.
Yeah. So thanks again for everybody for participating in the poll. And with that, we're going to move on into the meat of the conversation here and really get some great insight from you guys about what you've seen with your clients. That's the best part about being a part of the PODS community, is that everybody shares, right, their experiences. And so with that, I'll hand it off to you guys to talk about what we all came here today for.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So many of our clients are planning these platform upgrades, and we know that often involves not only the data migration, but maybe an update of the Esri platform. Often those go hand in hand. but you also need to think about third-party applications and either replace or update those. And then very importantly, internal applications and workflows, maybe some things you don't even know about. My friend Jeff Allen talks about, someone showing up, about a broken report that nobody knows, they still use. It's a great example, and that happens all the time, those kind of downstream workflows that you might impact or need to consider. So Jackie, you've got kind of unique perspective from both a pipeline operator and a vendor, including the, kind of the major platform upgrade, and the data migration. Can you talk about some of the reasons operators might consider a platform and data model upgrade?
Yeah, sure. So I've got some things on the screen here. So really, it's time to upgrade. It's just time to upgrade your business applications. And why do we want to do that? Well, we need to take advantage maybe of some of the new technology improvements that are out there. For example, you have the Esri location referencing. You may want to go to utility network. You may want to go to something new that Geonamic has that we really want to push PODS7 for example. And as Brad said, when you're changing to a business application, you're going to need, in most cases, to change your data model in some way. And especially if you've got a growing asset base or you're acquiring a new pipeline, say you're acquiring new distribution line, maybe you're acquiring gathering system, maybe you're a transmission company acquiring gathering systems. So you're growing and you need to get beyond what maybe a PODS relational would give you. Sometimes the relational has been perceived as a slow performance and resource intensive to maintain. So it's important to go to a PODS7, for example. I'm wearing my PODS shirt here, PODS7, talking about PODS today. So because the PODS7 gives you a lot of advantages to denormalize your data, it enhances the spatial capabilities of your database. Really, another reason is, you want to adhere to changing regulations. Monique just mentioned, NPMS. They're having stricter guidelines requiring more spatial accuracy, and PODS7 gives you that spatial component to upgrade to. And then you want to appeal to new audiences. You have a lot of the new people coming in from whether mid-career, early career. They want to use ARC Pro. They want to use the latest, greatest technologies. So those are some reasons.
Oh, very good.
All right, so the next up that we have is our final polling question that we want to hear from you guys. So now that Jackie has told us all of the great reasons to move to PODS7 beyond the fact that she just told you to, and she's a really smart lady, so you just should, right? We want to hear from you, from those of you that are moving to PODS7, which implementation pattern are you looking at? And I see our attendees on here, and I'm seeing quite a few friends like from TAG, Alexandra, who's already moved to PODS7, right? She was a leader, especially in Brazil, in the Brazilian pipeline industry, to move to PODS7, and has had great success with that as well. So, we know that some of you have already moved to PODS7, and we're really excited to get your feedback as well. So if you can, please go ahead and answer into the, or put your answer into the quick poll about if you're moving to PODS7, which implementation pattern are you looking at? And we're really excited that there are so many different versions of PODS that people can get with. And I do want to announce as well, which is breaking news here, that on Friday, I had the great honor and excitement to go ahead and upload to the member portal the final version of PODS 703 utility network and APR. So we're very excited that that's available for everybody now for download. You heard it here first. We haven't even put it out on LinkedIn or anything else. So all of that's there and available. And again, we want to thank our friends at One Oak who donated back all of their hard work that they did to get that going for us. So With that, we have 50% of you that have go ahead and voted on the poll. I'll close that and share the results here. What do you guys think? Jackie, are you surprised at this?
No, it's like the head and head, right? Do I go utility? Do I go APR? Yes. Okay, now do I go utility network? You know, that's kind of how I feel that I see it going. And then undecided, yeah, that jives with some of our experience as well from what we've heard from clients.
And I'm glad that people responded with that undecided, because if you are undecided, you're in the right spot, right? Because these guys are so knowledgeable on all of the different versions, and it really, and I think you guys will attest to it as well. It really just depends on your business, right? Every operator is different, and there's a lot of different reasons to move to the different implementation patterns. And so, again, if you're undecided, you're in the right spot, because this is what these guys are going to be going through today and looking at all the differences, right?
Oh, very good. I guess some of that undecided could also be the folks that aren't planning to move too. We probably should have put one more category there, but yeah, that's great. Okay, let's dig a little deeper and talk about some key differences in PODS7. And we're going to do that from a data model perspective and also from an application perspective. You know, what does it mean to us in terms of migrating or building new applications? So we'll start with just kind of the database perspective. Jackie, can you talk about some of the key differences, especially for those that may be familiar with previous PODS releases?
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Keep in mind, some of this is geeky. Xiangming's gonna share some other geeky stuff. So if you're here for that, you know, sit back. So this is from my perspective. You know, in my previous company, going from relational to spatial. You know, we had I think PODS 4 or 5 Frankenstein version of PODS. And so some of the things that were new to me and new to the group was things like GUIDs. You know, we were still using integers as primary keys. I know that sounds crazy, but you know, getting used to that global identifier or unique identifier was different, especially when you're editing an Art Pro. And then in PODS7, everything's called a unique ID. So the primary key is a unique ID. It's not called a valve ID or a pipe segment ID. So, you know, as a database person, you know, you've got to write all these views and joins, and as a developer, you know, those are things that you need to know. It takes time. It's different. You have to change your code base to talk to the PODS7. Also, really core to PODS7, and what we've been really proud of, is that we offer the core location model, the same one that Esri offers for utility network and location referencing. So that's a huge difference from PODS7 to previous releases. Following upon that, we now have the Esri audit fields, or the geodatabase audit tracking fields. I forget what they're called now, but we also have that in all of the feature classes. We include the from date and the to date. As you know, with our Pro, you have to have those fields to enable time. So of course we have those. You know, we have, so those are some of the key differences, kind of like architectural and relational, that I can speak to.
Oh, very good. I like the Frankenstein version. That kind of leads into what we're going to talk about from an application perspective. You know, from a third-party developer perspective, I mean, PODS and standards are really important to us. And PODS Esri Spatial, or PODS6, was a huge release for us, and is particularly in terms of standardizing how PODS works with the Esri stack. And it allowed us to really reduce implementation times, you know, have more standard, you know, COTS type offerings. Really an important release compared to those earlier kind of PODS relational, which tended to be spatialized or implemented in different ways depending on maybe who was involved, and it was more difficult to build off-the-shelf software that would work with that, for sure. So we've had similar positive experiences, even better, with PODS7 so far from an application development perspective. One of the things we did to prepare for this is got together the entire development team and got a lot of their feedback related to their experiences in migrating things to PODS7 from a software development perspective. And Changming is going to talk a little bit about some of those differences.
Brad, I think the PODS7 has.
Go back one there, Monique.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, we're on this for a couple more questions.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. Go ahead, Changming.
Yeah, Brad, I think the PODS7 has combined the strength of the both PODS spatial and PODS relational into a very solid and more practical model. First, I think the PODS7 inherits from PODS spatial the simple way to handle pipeline events, where the pipeline events are stored by station and measure instead of station point and the coordinates. So there's no join query needed to retrieve the data and save a lot of time in our coding. And secondly, PODS7 has clear the core hierarchy, from the calibration point to engineering network and a continuous network, which is very similar to PODS relational. Unlike PODS spatial, you don't have to do definition query by using ref mode to get series and route. I don't think many people like that. You combine the series and route into one single feature class. And for development perspective, that's not the best logic to do the coding. Thirdly, we think PODS7 has enhanced the spatial characteristics of the PODS spatial model, which allow operator to add the spatial column to any event table. So there's no need to store the point X and point Y for the point event, and you can use the spatial column to store the polyline and polygon data, which those added the spatial column can be easily consumed by end user applications such as ArcPro and WebMap very easily.
Oh, very good. So on the slide, we mentioned APR and Pro. So as part of a lot of these platform upgrades, we know that ArcMap's being kind of deprecated. We have now moved completely away from that, but we still have some clients that are still using it in production. But as part of these upgrades, especially if you're implementing APR, of course, then Pro is a part of it. So Changming, can you talk a little bit more while we're still on this this topic about some lessons learned related to that move from ArcMap to Pro?
Yeah, but according to Esri's schedule, ArcMap is going to fading away, and if you decide to use APR to manage your PODS7 data, and ArcPro is the must-have, right? And we know there's tons of the legacy applications written using ArcObject in ArcMap platform that has to be moved to ArcPro. And I think many operators are still debating either whether or when to migrate them. From our experience, migrating ArcMap-based application to ArcPro is straightforward, within a reasonable time frame. ArcPro now is very stable, and its SDK library is very rich and powerful. And besides, you take advantage of the 64-bit advantage. You get better performance. And we found almost all the functions in ArcObject can be found in ArcPro SDK library. And the many of this API calls are now organized in a better way. So it's good for the developers. And so far, there's only one tiny advanced buffer functions we couldn't find in ArcPro. But we think Esri is going to add that very soon. And moreover, for IT people, deploying ArcPro add-in is easier than ArcMap extensions.
Yep.
Yeah, and you don't have to register with the operating systems. So we strongly recommend updating to ArcPro and upgrade as early as possible. If you have not decided, make a decision, we think this is the right time.
Very good. You must be very still because your light went off in your office, Jianming.
Yeah.
Your motion light. Wave your arms. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, let's we're ready, Monique, move on to some more lessons learned on the project scope. So certainly, we know that project management and communication, and maybe most importantly, managing expectations are critical success factors for a successful platform upgrade. Jackie, can you talk about some of the lessons learned with respect to scoping and project management, again, from that operator and vendor perspective that you have?
Sure. So yeah, as you said, application migration requires a data migration, and that can be, and you really need to engage your key stakeholders, your end users, your business users up front. Make sure that they know what's going on and they have the time to dedicate to make this happen. Defining and redefining your scope is not a bad idea. To do as often and as much as you can. Really making sure you have everything in scope that you need. Are you going to QC data? How are you going to QC data? Are you going to clean data? Is data cleansing going to be a part of this scope? As I think a lot of operators are proud of their data, and they think their data is, it's been managed well over the years, and it's great, but it may not fit into a utility network or to a location referencing system. And so, you need to make your users and your staff aware of that and plan for that accordingly. It's also maybe a good opportunity to clean your data. So maybe there's some low-hanging fruit. For example, you have some coded value domains that you want to clean up. You've got some trash in there, case sensitive unknown and not case sensitive unknown, and all these things. Maybe there's fields that you're not using. Let's make this an opportunity to clean those upon data migration. So that's something that I saw us do at a prior operator that was very helpful. So.
Hey, Jackie, we have we have 5 questions that have been submitted so far. Just we're only halfway through the hour. I'm going to throw one of them at you right now because it's pertinent to what you just talked about, I think. Do you have any tools to validate data prior to PODS7 migrations?
Yes, I believe we do. And I think Brad's going to talk about that one actually, because I don't have a whole lot of experience with it.
Yes, we do. We in our core kind of platform, we have a lot of QA, QC, and validation tools that are particularly useful for data validation. So we have a lot of standard kind of integrity and linear referencing type checks that we can apply to the current kind of database. And then we can also build up a pretty complex rule base of things to consider before migration, apply that, and really kind of assess that data. So that is something that we have, and we're continuing to build out and configure as we get involved in more of these migrations.
Okay, great. Yeah, and everybody, I'm going to encourage you to use the questions box or the chat box. Please stop texting me your questions. Please use the chat box or the questions box. All right, so yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah, so let's dig a little bit more into application support. We can go ahead and move on to the next slide. So a lot of our involvement in these upgrades is updating applications as part of a data model, or platform upgrade and modernization. And we certainly have to consider our application behavior kind of in the new environment, but equally important is the integration with other kind of client application and workflows and some of those complex dependencies. So, thinking about kind of our support and testing when we go into production, it's amazing how many times, it's these kind of downstream things, integrations that come up, expectations that your alignment sheet generator might have with respect to how your editing environment sets certain flags or behaviors to trigger automated alignment sheets, for example, or outputs from HCA analysis, whether liquids or gas class in HCA, and dependencies that your risk modeling environment might have on that in terms of how that data is properly managed. So that's often big part, particularly for a company that maintains a large system of record and has lots of users. So Jackie, can you start by giving us a few examples of lessons learned from an application support perspective?
Sure. So I think you mentioned it earlier, Brad, about that report that somebody runs and it no longer works. So really diving into the back-end processes and the other internal applications, the other third-party applications. Maybe someone wrote at your company a long time ago, or anything like that. Really, you can't do enough of that scrubbing your system to find dependencies, I guess is what we would call them, or integrations, data integrations. As well as, for example, alignment sheet generator, with our PODS7 implementation of the previous operator, we had to create specific feature classes with the exact requirements that were needed to run that application. Pretty standard for a third-party application, but you just needed to have that scoped and put into the project. A similar case was with another third-party data set for our integrity system. We needed to have published or derived data sets for that operator or for that application because we weren't using APR. So we had to have some kind of published database for that application to hit. So those are some key examples. You also want to make sure that you have those key stakeholders involvement. You want to make sure you have people to test. Testing is really critical, as we all probably know from our experience, to catch things. And also timing on your regulations. So if you're doing regulatory reporting at a certain time of year, you need to time it so that you're able to do that reporting either in the old system right before, or go live the new system. There's also some vernacular that's different. So in PODS7, they don't have the word series. They don't have the term line in the data model of pipeline, but they have the concept of line, but there's no term line or series. So, deciding how you're going to handle that for your end users, are you going to re-educate them on what an engineering station or a continuous network is, or what a route is, for example, in PODS7, compared to what the old terminology was. So those were things that we had to address. And then training, of course, is very important. Having a train the trainer type situation, so you don't have to always rely on your third-party trainer to be able to do things in production.
All right, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, are y'all ready for another question related?
Sure.
Awesome. So this one is there a sandbox environment for testing that the operator can use as a trial before implementation?
That's a good question. We often set that up. Recently, a lot of our new implementations, we've been setting up a dedicated, AWS environment, sometimes an Azure environment, and then getting access to the whole project team to that. So those are kind of used as sandbox type environments. That's really interesting. That is something we could do. Is then kind of use that to assess a current kind of database and even have a look at some of the applications. But that's been kind of a standard implementation procedure, and then some of our clients are in full production, with a dedicated AWS or Azure environment as well.
Yeah, and then there's another question actually that came in a little bit before that is related as well from somebody else. What tool or tools did you use to actually copy the records over from like an older model database to the PODS7 database?
Yeah, we actually use our own tools as opposed to using, we know you can some use FME and configure that, but we actually have a bulk data loader and transformation tools that is very, very kind of pods and pipeline specific that we use to do our production work. So it's the same thing that our clients use to bulk load data that use our editor, but we use that for data migration work as well.
Okay, so you have some tools to kind of do a health check on the data, and then you also have some tools for loading from older model databases to the new POD7. Got
That's
it.
right. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, we have more questions, but let's keep going because
Yep.
I don't want us to run out of time.
Yeah, we've got kind of one more slide just to kind of wrap up before some more Q&A. So these are a couple case studies. So we want to get a little more specific here related to a couple of POD7 upgrade projects that we've supported very recently. We have to be a little bit generic here, but a couple of different pipeline operators that have been early adopters here. And Changming is going to give us a few examples, again, from I think primarily an application point of view, but also some database extensions and things that we needed to do to support some of these workflows. So go ahead, Changming.
Yeah, Brad, from application point of view, we think migrating from POD spatial to POD7 can be very smooth. Based on our practice, our core application and modules such as Pipeline Office Studio, alignment sheet generator, and a gas liquid HCA, which can be running on POD7 with some just minor code changes. But migrating application from POD relational to POD7 does take more time. Besides the larger gap between PODS relational and POD7, there's one reason is that PODS relational model has been around for very long time, and the clients typically customize or modify the data model. So each different PODS relational have some customized flavor, varies by different client. So that's one challenge. And so we allow POD7 is set a standard way to implement. So it's very good for the developer, and make our life much easier with POD7. A very good lesson we learned is that POD7 is very straightforward to extend to support different application and modules. For example, we help a client to extend POD7 to support the inline inspection data analysis, data alignment. And recently we extend that again to support direct assessment data. And we also work very close with S3, to help the client to maintain their workflow. We try to fill the gap that to support their workflow that current APR tool does not available at this time. For example, we build a tool to batch update the derived measure. You can do this in your processing tool, but there is some limitations. If a record or event failed, you have to manually find them and fix them. That could be very time consuming. And there's no preview function. So we build a similar tool, but with just more, nicer interface, allow you to interactive preview every record. Sometimes you don't know if your station is right or measure is right. So give you a preview with the map. You can decide, okay, this is the way I want to go. And you can select which record you want to update. And you can also export the record, which, with some questions, you have to double check. So we build this tool kind of like a productivity tool, just help user to increase their productivity. Another example is the batch tool to update the geometry and measure based on edit response. I think that's very important flag for many operators. So if the flag is set to absolute, you have to use the geometry to update the measure. If set to relative, then on the other side you have to maintain XY from the measure. So we build an interactive tool to batch up the record in a more efficient way, which we don't think is currently available within APR tool.
So we found that the model itself to be very, very extensible. And then some of the examples just recently, we've really gone in depth in the analysis, to getting a little echo somewhere, sorry, to support things like corrosion growth and anomaly matching and and so on. But really positive experience, and are able to do that in such a way that, of course, everything's still the data is available, to the core Esri platform. Nothing proprietary or kind of non-standard from that perspective.
Yeah, and guys, I know I've gotten this question several times from people. We keep releasing additional releases. Like 702 was the ILI module, and now 703 has utility network and APR. I do want to just make sure everybody understands that we have, you can just add all of these modules on, right? You don't have to migrate to a whole new version of PODS in order to, accept all this. If you're already on PODS7, right, again, it's an a la carte. You take what you like and you leave the rest, right? And so that leads me to another question that we had on here. I know you guys are talking about, inland inspection analysis and HTAs and all kinds of stuff that are very applicable to everyone in the that's in integrity management, right? So we had a question come through that says, in upgrading to PODS7, how is Geonamic or PODS going to manage the HCA type distribution, HPA, OPA, ECO for annual reports? And in the conceptual model, it only displays the determination methods. So, a lot of concern there is, how do we get that easy button for the annual reports, right? And the uploads. And I know there's some working groups that are working right now at building out, and have been for a year now, at building out an integrity and regulatory task module. I know that you guys have been helping out with that working group as well. And that's, it's all built. They're just trying to break it right now. So I think that's going to be very soon our next release version of PODS7. And what they did was go through the entire annual report and make sure every single item is listed in there, and that now you'll know, right, immediately why you performed that dig, right? Why you went and did that. Was it time? Was an anomaly? What happened? So anything to add there, Geonamic crew, on all of that?
That's a great question, and it's funny, we just this has been a big topic for us recently. We're doing a great deal of liquids HCA and EFRD analysis. At the current time, we've probably got more than 30, almost 40 ongoing projects, and one of the challenges, we just did a big upgrade to our liquids tools, and one of the discussions we were having is exactly that. How granular do we make the results to support regulatory kind of reporting? We tend to make them very granular and be able to support just about every imaginable kind of aggregation. But then what's been a challenge for us then is delivering those results to clients, and two things. One, their schema, fitting it in their current schema, which is different for every client pretty much. And second, presenting them in such a way that they can compare to previous results, which might have been done by another vendor, So I've just been spending a great amount of time on that. So yeah, I would love for a standard to emerge there that would support everything. We have some clients that are interested in fairly aggregated results without a lot of details, and other that want incredible level of details to be able to feed in kind of unique combinations. Again, talking about liquids HCA of maybe direct impacts to high population areas, and treating that a certain way in the risk algorithm, even though from a regulatory perspective, it's just that could affect segment, that primarily matters. So yeah, a very active kind of topic for us right now, and that we are working on and debating internally in terms of the tool, and what level of detail to support, and how much configurability we should add to that to support all these clients' different kind of IMPs, really.
Yeah, so a follow-up question to that too, Brad, and they're kind of similar. One came in via text and one came in via the the questions box. I know you guys are working diligently to make sure that all of your tools are fully functional with 7. So one came in that said, have you migrated all your applications to support PODS7? And then another one here is, in Geonamic's implementation, how much customization was necessary to make PODS7 fully functional with your tools?
Yeah. So yes, we actually have migrated all of our tools now and have them in production. Again, really fortunate that we had a couple of clients that were early adopters and kind of forced that issue for us. And then in terms of customization, so these two examples we list here, you know, we didn't really have to customize the tools so much, but it was really just extending the data model for some of the more advanced workflows. We set up the applications to read the schema directly, so we don't hardwire anything. So those extensions are automatically read, and then we can just configure that. So so no customization from that perspective, but certainly it was, you know, a rebuild, you know, just because of that new location referencing core that's in PODS7, you know, of that whole platform to support those PODS7 users.
Okay, okay, great. And then you ready for another one? They're pouring in.
Yeah.
Okay. So timing, this next one is related to timing. Could you share some information on the time spent on the migration work stages from planning to development to production release? Now, we know every operator is different, right? And like, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about OneOak, about, you know, what their migration was like, because, you know, they had to consolidate 3 different databases in the midst of, you know, developing and then creating the model and everything. So I know every situation is different, but could you give us some information on timing?
Yeah, it's, you know, there's a lot of variability there for sure. I think, you know, Chang-Ming mentioned, you know, is it relational to PODS7 or is it, you know, kind of spatial to PODS7? You know, certainly the spatial to PODS7 is faster for us and quite efficient. The other thing that Jackie, I think, mentioned too is how much kind of data cleanup is going to be part of this. Many times clients take the opportunity to do that. And then when they're looking at the overall kind of project schedule, they're also planning, you know, all of the application kind of updates as well, and all those third-party updates. And there is some dependencies on the asset sides too. We have some very small clients that we've been able to do the migration part, you know, literally in a few weeks. I think we just wrapped up one of those. Very small kind of operators. And then we've got others that, you know, a kind of more reasonable project schedule. Jackie, I think, is in the 4 to 6 month pay, you know, range. Would you agree?
Yes, I'd agree. It's very highly dependent on the amount of data and the amount of involvement, the state of the data, and what you agree to the tool that you're agreeing to go to for data management, such as UNet or APR, of course. Yeah, and then you know, in my experience with where I was working, I believe it was such a long project that it was a couple years, but they broke it down into steps. So to get it approved, we broke it down into a couple of phases, like, you know, phase 1 and 2, and so that helps to kind of break it up and take manageable chunks to get it funded. But yeah, it can be intensive if you've got, like for us, we had several types of systems to integrate, similar to, sounds like, to OneOak. You know, you had a gathering system, it was homegrown, you know, SDE, and then you had a PODS 4 or 5 transmission line. So kind of marrying those two together and then putting that into utility network, which was a new release for us at the time. You know, that all of that together was like, you know, added to the timeline. So it just depends, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't give you
And to be fair, those 2 examples you have, Jackie, both of those involved assimilating multiple different databases, right? And
yeah.
And our clients so far, the ones we've been involved with, they already did have one centralized kind of system of record, and it was really just a straightforward migration there. And most of that didn't include much data quality improvements. You know, it was just kind of getting the migration right.
Yeah. And Jackie, you know, you worked for a very, very large operator who was literally the first ones, you know, y'all in OneOak were the first ones that went to utility network. And so it was, thank goodness y'all decided to eat that elephant so that everybody else in the industry can benefit from the hurdles that you encountered, right?
Right.
So I have another question related to UNet. So this one is, again, via text. Everybody, please go to the question box. Have you had any of your customers ask you to help them with Esri APR or UNet implementations, and then any experiences?
Right. So I can answer that. We have had a couple of clients reach out about our experiences and, what do we recommend? And, of course, the Esri business partner, we're going to be there to support a move to Esri location referencing or to utility network. Our experience right now, I'm personally leading the charge to gain that experience and exposure for Geonamic and for our clients. Taking training. I'm also working with PODS on the technical, the T committee, the training and events committee, whereby we are going to customize and look for training that's specifically around PODS7 and APR and getting the, migrating the data into that, and then how do we maintain the data going forward. So just we need more of that in the PODS world as well. So
yeah, and Jackie, thanks for bringing that up, because I know you guys are going to present. You guys have been working diligently, and you have even more working sessions coming up with operators and everything. And I think you guys are scheduled to present. I don't think y'all better present on your findings at the PODS Fall Forum. So that's going to be I'm going to plug now. Make sure everybody, you've signed up for the PODS Fall Forum, which is going to be October the 10th. It's in the same location, the Hyatt Regency Houston West, as the Esri Pipeline Seminar in Houston, which will be on October the 11th. We need to make sure everybody, don't forget to register. If you register for Esri, that doesn't mean that you register for us, and then vice versa. So sorry, you have to register for both the PODS event and the Esri event, but we are grateful to Geonamic for helping to sponsor that event as well. So, you guys make sure that if you're remote, we have a link for everybody to join us remotely in hybrid, but we hope to see everybody in person in Houston in 3 weeks. And we're going to have a little social afterwards. We have some shuttles that are going to take us over to Topgolf and have some food and drinks, of course. So if you can, everybody make sure that you sign up, go to the PODS website on the homepage and make sure you register for that. And I know the Geonamics crew is going to be out in full force. So there are multiple other questions that came in. So come see Geonamic at the Fall Forum. And then also we're going to email everybody with some additional questions too. So any final thoughts, guys, before I wrap it up for us?
No, we really appreciate the opportunity to participate, and thank you so much, Monique, for what you're doing with PODS. It just it's invaluable for us as third-party developers, and just love the momentum that PODS have, and appreciate your efforts so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys. We can't do it without everybody, right? We're a community of people, and we're growing significantly, and I'm super excited about that. So. Of course, again, thank you to everybody for participating. As soon as we close this up, you're going to get a survey. So if you can take just a couple of minutes to give us some feedback about how we're doing. And, these podcasts were a new thing, and so far they've been pretty popular. So give us feedback on how we're doing. Make sure that you let us know how you felt about everything, and get us some more questions. There's a handout all about Geonamic in your control panel as well, so you can download that for some more information. And yeah, so thanks everybody again. Make sure that I'm going to get to the contacts page. Make sure you reach out to Brad and the crew as well if you have any additional questions or need information. If you want to work with Jackie on the training, education, and events committee, please reach out. If you want to get involved in the working group, please do. We all work together. We're grateful to One Oak for donating the model back to us. We then codified and made a new standard for utility network and APR. So thanks again, everybody. We're at the hour. We appreciate everybody's time. Make sure that you send us back your feedback in that survey, and we'll see you all at the fall forum.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.